10 additionally on top of the 8 great Lamrim texts. So there is a tradition of giving the 8, the transmission of the 8 different texts of Lamrim, which Ling Rinpoche had requested me many years ago, but we had no time to do this. And then last year, the abbot of Shartse Monastery had told me that it's been now 610 years since Master Tsongkhapa wrote the Lamrim Chemo, and and then he told me that it has been 602 years since Master Tsongkhapa gave teaching on Lamrim Chemo at Garden Monastery. So I didn't know these. I had no information, and when he told me this, I felt very a special sense of delight. So based on Lamrim Chemo, the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment by Master Tsongkhapa, there had been many great masters who became realized masters based on the Lamrim Chemo. And here, including the 2 great chief disciples of Master Tsongkhapa, Kyudubje and Gyaltsabje. And so Master Tsongkhapa actually practiced these stages of the path to enlightenment himself, and he showed the path. And also there had been many masters who became enlightened, reached the state of Vajradhara, the union state of Vajradhara, based on relying upon the teaching of Lama Tsongkhapa. And then from the Nyingma's tradition, we have Shabgar Tsoktu Rangtrul, who was actually instructed by his own root guru to base on the Lamrim Chemo in order to do his preliminary practices for the more advanced practices. And so the Lamrim Chemo has been a text which was taken interest in by masters from all different traditions of Tibetan Buddhism. And Master Tsongkhapa has done a great, made a great contribution to the Buddha Dharma by writing this text. And so after meeting the abbot of Garden Shartse, I decided to give teaching on Lamrim Chemo, and together with it, we have other Lamrim commentaries, including Shamar Lamrim, and also Pabongka Rinpoche's the Liberation in the Palm of Your Hands. And so there are about 13 different texts that we are going to go through for this teaching. Now, as to how to go about with the teaching of these Lamrim texts, I decided to start it in Garden, and then go to Drepung, and then Sera. To do this whole teaching in one go would be too much because I have other engagements, and there's no way I could do it. I can do it for over a month at a stretch to give these teachings. And so I thought of starting the teaching from Garden and cover as much as we can the different Lamrim texts. So one thing I would like to say here is not only the monks who live in Mount God, there are many people, also many monks and nuns from other parts of India who have come here, and also there are people who have come from Tibet despite hardships and danger. So if I were to give the commentary or guided instructions of all the 8 great guided instructions of Lamrim, then I wouldn't be able to finish all. So with regard to the 8 different texts, sometimes when we go through these 8 different commentaries, His Holiness is greeting one person by the name of Amdo Yunten. His Holiness is asking if he had no problem or difficulties on his way. And so the Lamrim texts are, there is a significance in teaching these 8 different Lamrim texts together. Because the points that are not so clear in one may be more clear in the others and so forth. So because of that, it would be complementary with each other. But in order to do this all, so I thought that we would do the Lamrim Chemo and the middle length Lamrim and Lamrim texts, the 3 Lamrim texts written by Master Tsongkhapa himself, and then next year we'll continue with the rest of the texts written by other masters. So this is what I plan to do during this time in Drepung and Garden and Drepung. So ideally, I should also do the lamp for the path to enlightenment by Master Atisha. So we'll go through Lamrim Chemo, the great treatise on the path of enlightenment, the middle length stages of the path to enlightenment, and then the songs of experience, and Master Tsongkhapa Atisha's lamp for the path to enlightenment. So I took out this time to give this discourse on these texts, and you also have come with great enthusiasm, and therefore this is also going to be a contribution or service to the teaching of the Buddha. Master Tsongkhapa says at the end of Lamrim text, in the prayer, may the teaching which is spread anywhere and declined, and may it in places where it has not reached yet, may I be able to spread it out of compassion. And so by places where Buddhism had spread before, for people from these areas, the teaching will give a special profound understanding of the Dharma. And then there are people who come from traditionally non-Buddhist countries, people taking interest. And so for them also it would be good. And so there are, of course, people who are interested in the Dharma but don't understand it well, and because so there are sometimes dangers of misunderstanding the Dharma. If you want to be a Buddhist practitioner, a follower of Buddhism, then you have to have the understanding of the entire teaching of the Buddha as a whole. And so people who come from traditionally non-Buddhist countries, for them, Lamrim teaching would give them understanding of the entire teaching of the Buddha, and so there is the significance of listening. So as Lama Tsongkhapa has made this prayer, may I make this teaching, the treasure of this teaching clear, where it has spread and declined. May I revive it, and may it has not spread before. May I be able to lit the lamp and out of compassion. And so please listen to the teaching with enthusiasm, with good motivation. And so we have all gathered here to, having gathered here, we should actually consider this time very important. Otherwise, it's a waste of time and waste of money. The patrons who are sponsoring this teaching, it's a waste of their money. And so we should make sure that the money that is spent by the patrons is not wasted. And with regard to Ling Rinpoche, he had an accident, and so he is not able to attend the teaching. So he was the person who actually initially requested this teaching, and he took all initiative, put great effort in preparing this teaching. And so may Ling Rinpoche recover very soon and quickly, and we should also make prayer for him so that he could recover from his injury and live long to serve the Dharma and sentient beings. So if we have time, with regard to the Namrim, the teachings on the stages of the path, and if there were very few disciples coming to the teaching, then we could do the 6 preliminary practices before going through the teaching itself. And it is traditionally said that the Lamrim realization of the stages of the path of enlightenment starts from the teaching site, where you sit in the teaching on Lamrim. So there is by doing the 6 preliminary practices, we would be engaging in the accumulation of merit and purification of negativity. So if we have time, we could do this lengthy preliminary practice, but we have no time. And the more important thing that we have to keep in mind is to actually give thought to the teaching. And even if we even if we do long prayers and rituals, sometimes it could turn make us boring and then put us to sleep. And so the chanting masters could lead the prayers, chantings during this preliminary prayers and so forth very loudly, but then after that, during the actual teaching, they could fall asleep. And so we wouldn't go through the lengthy preliminary prayers, as said in the great stages of the path of enlightenment, Lamrim Chemo. So we have to have a very pure and good motivation, and with that motivation, we have to visualize, imagine Master, the founder of Buddhism, Master Shakyamuni, as Master Master Nagarjuna has made praise of his praise of Shakyamuni Buddha for teaching the dependent origination free from 8 extremes. You should visualize Master Shakyamuni Buddha, and also flanked by Maitreya and Manjushri, as well as the great masters of the lineage. The profound lineage and the extensive lineage, as well as the in relation to Tantra, the profound lineage of blessings, down to our own root masters and the masters from whom with whom we have direct Dharma connection. So visualize all of them around Buddha Shakyamuni, and also if you could visualize the merit tree of Lama Chepa, which contains the Buddha, meditational deities, and masters, one's own root guru and other masters, and then Dhamma protectors and so forth. So if you could visualize them, of course you should. But if you can't, it's not necessary. Just visualize all the Lama Chepa merit field, as well as the great masters of India, the great Mahasiddhas, such as Master Shantarakshita and Guru Padmasambhava, who actually came to Tibet and established Buddhism firmly on the Tibetan soil. And so it's thanks to these great masters of India who came to Tibet that we have this very profound tradition of Buddhism in Tibet with us Tibetans. So Master Shantarakshita was a great master himself, a top scholar of Nalanda monastic institution. And then we also had Master Atisha Dibamkara Shrijana, who also came to Tibet and established this Lamrim tradition in Tibet with his by writing the lamp for the path of enlightenment. And then we also should visualize all the Kadamba masters. And down to our root gurus. So we'll say the prayer of the three recollections of the three jewels, which so I usually recite the praises of that is contained in Maitreya's Abhisamaya Alamkara, and also Master Nagarjuna's praise to the Buddha for teaching dependent origination, which is free from the 8 extremes. And then we'll do the 7 limb practice prayer, and then the Lamrim lineage master prayer. As we say the lineage master prayers, we should visualize all the lineage masters, beginning with Master Shakyamuni Buddha, down to our own last root guru. And then as we recite the name, utter the names of these great different masters, we should visualize the nectar streaming down to us and purifying us. So with regard to mandala offering, we'll have only the one verse for mandala, without having to go through all this chanting, the long chanting with the deep voice of. So to the teacher, for destroyer thus gone fully and perfectly awakened Buddha, endowed with knowledge and good conduct, gone to place knower of the world, helmsman of ordinary beings, to be tamed, supreme one, teacher of all gods and men, Buddha, for destroyer, glorious, victorious one, Shakyamuni, to you I pay homage, make offerings, and go for refuge. This is said 3 times. Samba nam ki yap pao be kansa nam ki gu chung ba me ba de ba ta ge ma so ta ge nye war ma ku pa sum me ba ta ta ma de ba ne me le nam ba ra che wa sum bo ta ne ra to nam ba ra che le de ba ta The Dharma is good in the beginning, good in the middle, and good in the end. We have not yet said the prayer for tea and bread.
Sending it over two frequencies. I'm also sending it over the Hindi frequency, 96. Okay? So, 96 and... Try 96. Well, just say testing or something. No, 97. No, 96. Jimmy, I'm sending it over both. 97.
When, O chief amongst humans, where you were born, you took 7 steps on this great earth and said, I'm supreme in this world. To you who were raised at that time, I pay homage. Completely pure body, supremely fine form, ocean of wisdom, like a golden mountain, fame that blazes in the 3 worlds. Supreme protector, to you I pay homage. Endowed with the supreme marks, a face like the stainless moon, a color like gold, to you I pay homage. The 3 worlds are not like you, who is free from dust. Matchless one, endowed with knowledge, to you I pay homage. Protector, endowed with great compassion, omniscient. Teacher, filled of ocean-like merits and good qualities, to the thus gone I pay homage. Through purity, freedom from attachment, through virtue, releases from the evil gone realms. A unique, supreme, ultimate meaning to the Dharma that brings peace, I pay homage. Free from freedom, teaching the path. Well-being, abiding in the pure trainings, holy filled, endowed with good qualities. To the Sangha also I pay homage. Do not commit any unvirtuous actions, accumulate wealth of virtues, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha, like a star, a mirage, a lamp, illusion, drops of dew, bubbles, dreams, lightning, and clouds. Look at all conditioned phenomena as such. Due to this merit, having attained the state of all-seeing, and thereby subduing the enemy of faults, may I liberate transmigrators from the ocean of existence, stirred by the waves of aging, death, sickness, and death. Yanla dumad na yürümç. Tablo doçtu. Today. So is your tea hot, or is it time to say prayer or grace for tea? And do we have bread also? So have people already eaten their bread? So let's say the prayer for tea and bread. Well, this prayer is the prayer for His Holiness, interspersing each line with the different parts of the name, the long name of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. May I offer this tea and bread to the noble Avalokiteshvara. So next we'll see the Heart Sutra. In Tibetan, in the Tibetan version, there is the phrase that even the five aggregates are empty of intrinsic existence. But this, the word "even" is not there in Chinese. So because it's not in Chinese, it's not in Vietnamese, Japanese, and Korean languages. There's some significance about this word "even." The word "even." So when I actually checked whether this the word "even" was there in the original Sanskrit or not, I found that it actually is there. And so, with regard when we think about the significance of this word, is that by saying even the five aggregates are empty of intrinsic existence, what it shows is that not only the person, which is empty of self or independent identity, does not exist, but even the five aggregates on the basis of which we impute is the self are empty of intrinsic existence. So in the first sermon of the Buddha, he does teach, the Buddha did teach the selflessness of persons. But during the second turning of the wheel, the teachings of the perfection of wisdom, then the Buddha teaches that, taught that the five psychophysical aggregates are also empty of intrinsic existence. So the term "even" in this phrase is very important. So that we have here many Chinese in the audience. So I thought it may be good for you to know this, to be aware of this. Homage to the three jewels. Thus have I heard once the Blessed One was staying in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak along with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas, and at that time the Blessed One entered the meditative absorption on the varieties of phenomena called the appearance of the profound. At that time as well, the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, clearly beheld the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom itself and saw that even the five aggregates are empty of intrinsic existence. Thereupon, through the Buddha's inspiration, or blessing, the Venerable Shariputra spoke to the noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, and said, "How should any son of the lineage who wishes to engage in the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom train?" When this had been said, the holy Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, spoke to the Venerable Shariputra and said, "Shariputra, any noble son or noble daughter who wishes to engage in the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should clearly see this way. They should see perfectly that even the five aggregates are empty of intrinsic existence. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form too is not other than emptiness. Likewise, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness are all empty. Therefore, Shariputra, that all phenomena are emptiness. They are without defining characteristics. They are not born. They do not cease. They are not defiled. They are not undefiled. They are not deficient, and they are not complete. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no mental formation, and no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. There is no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no texture, and no mental object. There is no eye element, and so on up to no mind element, including up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance. There is no extinction of ignorance, and so on up to no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Likewise, there is no suffering, origin, cessation, or path. There is no wisdom, no attainment, and even no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since bodhisattvas have no attainment, they rely on this perfection of wisdom and abide in it, having no obscuration, or in their mind they have no fear, and by going utterly beyond error, they will reach the end of nirvana. All the Buddhas too, who abide in the three times, attain the full awakening of unexcelled perfect enlightenment by relying on this profound perfection of wisdom. Therefore, one should know that the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unexcelled mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled. The mantra that quells all suffering is true because it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed that Yatha Gade Gade Parasam Gade Bodhi Swaha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva, the great being, the Bodhisattva, the great beings should train in the perfection of wisdom in this way. Therefore, the Blessed One arose from that meditative absorption and commended the holy Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being, saying, "This is excellent, 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 O noble child. It is just so. It should be just so. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have revealed, for then even the Tathagatas will rejoice." As the Blessed One uttered these words, the Venerable Shariputra, the holy Avalokiteshvara, the great Bodhisattva, the great being, along with the entire assembly, including the worlds of humans, gods, humans, Asuras, and Gandharvas, all rejoiced and hailed what the Blessed One had said. This is the verse of homage from Maitreya's Abhisamaya Alamkara, which is a homage to the perfection of wisdom, which leads the hearers and Pratyeka Buddhas to their goal of arhatship, and which leads bodhisattvas to perform their deeds to help other sentient beings, and Buddhas to give all kinds of teachings in accordance with the mental dispositions of sentient beings. And next is a homage to the verses of salutation from Master Nagarjuna's root verses of the middle way, which pays homage to the Buddha for teaching dependent on arising, free from 8 extremes, and leading us to the state of peace. And next is the 7-limb prayer. Dang ye dang we cha ye wo sang bo chu be mun lam top ta ye ge wa tam je yi ge mo na ba ti pe chi mi du di se ge na shu ba ta te da ra chu ge al di na yu Tamje Gyawa Tage Kongwarame Tedaranga Bami Se Jas Yangen Yala Jatsu Drakunge Gyawa Kunge Yinden Rupchu Jin Devara Shekwa Tamje Da Nedo Tamba Chenwa Tamba Dan Singen Namdan Chuba Me Chodan Dope Tamba Yin Gyawa Tedala Nichu Chosa Tamba Namda Tichoda Wangene le dang a tan ti shin yi ge jiang ti ba da ye de da tam je da ye su su sha chong ju jia wa kun dang san ye se rang ye nam dan lo tang ro wa kun ge san nam kan la yan te da kun ge gang nam chu chu chi gen zhu ma ta chen chu Gumbo de da da ye tam je la kolo. So virtues through the virtues gain, merits gained through offering, prostration, confession, and so forth, may they add to become as enlightened. So with regard to the lineage master prayer, which is the opening the supreme path, door to the supreme path, was initially written by Master Tsongkhapa himself. So with regard to the Lam lineage, I received the teaching on Lam Rim based on the 4 annotated text of Lam Rim from Tijang Rinpoche, Gyabje Tijang Rinpoche, and then from my senior tutor, Gyabje Ling Rinpoche. So there are different lineages that I have received. So my senior tutor Ling Rinpoche actually received the lineage from the 13th Dalai Lama. So I had come across a text with the lineage Lama prayers that I had that was brought from Tibet, and so it gives the lineage from Chubsang Rinpoche, and then 13th Dalai Lama and Purjo Champa Rinpoche, from whom the 13th Dalai Lama received the teaching. And then there are the masters like Kirup Norsang Gyatso, and also the various names of the Dalai Lamas in the lineage Lama prayer. And so I consulted with Gyabje Tijang Rinpoche, my junior tutor, and so that was perhaps put together by the Gaden Tib Rinpoche, Lindrup Zundru. And so Tijang Rinpoche saw this text and looked at the lineage, and that was actually confirmed. And so it has many names of the names of the Dalai Lamas. So I would just be I want to feel patriotic to the Dalai Lamas and like to say this lineage Lama prayers. So I consulted him and used this lineage Lama prayer. So the prayer begins by saying, glorious or magnificent precious root Guru, please rest above upon the lotus and moon on my crown, and take care of me with your great kindness or compassion. Bestow upon me the attainments of your holy body, speech, and mind. The teacher, the conqueror gone beyond, the incomparable guide, venerable, invincible protector Maitreya, the Buddha's regent, exalted Asanga, who was prophesied by the victorious one, the Buddha, to you 3 Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. I, Buddha and Bodhisattvas, I make request. So please do the visualization of the nectar flowing into you as you say these prayers, as His Holiness mentioned earlier. And Vasubandhu, crown ornament of this world's learned ones, Arya Vimuktisena, who found the middle path. Vimuktisena Gomin, with a high rank on faith, to you 3 who opened the eyes of the world, I make request. Paramasena, who was exalted and marvelous accomplishments, who exalted in the marvelous accomplishments, Vinitasena, who purified his mind with the profound path. Verochana, a treasury of great waves of conduct. To you three friends of migratory beings, I make request. Haribhadra, who composed the vast treatises on the supreme path of Pranjaparamita. Kosali, holder of all the victorious one's instructions. Dandasena, 인지나라 촉지되왜 브레드 인지나라 촉지입니다. Haribhadra, who composed vast treatises on the supreme path of Pranjaparamita. Kosali, holder of all the victorious one's instructions. Ratnasena, who lovingly cared for all beings. To you three helmsmen of sentient beings, I make request. Suvarnadvipa, who mastered the bodhicitta. Adisha, holder of the tradition of great vehicle. Precious Drumtunpa, who clarified the noble path. To you three pillars of the teachings, I make request. Now, the pinnacle of the Shakyas, supreme. Now, next is the request to the wisdom lineage, the lineage of the profound wisdom, the pinnacle of the Shakyas, supreme guide of peerless speech, referring to Buddha Shakyamuni, Manjushri, total encompassment of the victorious one's infinite knowledge. This Didish. The supreme exalted Nagarjuna, who perceived the meaning of the profound. To you three crown ornaments of speech, I make request. Chandrakiti, who clarified the exalted one's thoughts. Vidya Kokila, the elder, his eldest son. The Vidya Kokila, the younger son of the victorious ones. To you three powerful ones of the lineage, I make request. Adisha, holder of the tradition of the great vehicle, who saw profound dependent arisings just as it is. Precious Dönpa, Drumtempa, who clarified the noble path. To you, to the ornaments of this world, I make request. Next is the Kadamba Lamrim lineage. Magnificent Gompawa, the powerful yogi, the lord of the yogis. Nizurba, who had stable concentration on the profound. Thamapa, who upheld the whole collection of Vinaya. To you three lamps of the border regions, I make request. Namka Sengye, who practiced with earnest effort. Namka Gelpo, who was blessed by the holy ones. Sengye Sangbo, who abandoned the 8 worldly dharmas. To Gelset Sangbo, I make request. With bodhicitta, seeing all seeing all beings as his child, blessed and cared for by the sublimate deities, supreme spiritual friend, guiding migrators in degenerate time at the feet of Namka Gyaltsana, I make request. Now next is the Kadam Shungpawa, the classical text lineage. The spiritual friend, Potowa, representing the lineage of the victorious one. Sharawa, unequaled in discrimination. And Chekawa, who fulfilled the bodhicitta. To you three, who fulfilled the hopes of beings, I make request. Bodhisattva Chilpupa, possessor of oral transmissions and insight. Lungi Wangchuk, the supremely learned one. Gompo Rinchen, Rinpoche, protector of the migrators in the 3 realms. To you three great elders, I make request. Sangchenpa, who had the sweet scent of pure morality. Sonawa, master of 100,000 sections of Vinaya. Mendrapa, who reached the limits of the Abhidhamma ocean. To you three guides of migrators, I make request. Having found the profound and vast Dharma, became a protector, the one who became a protector of all fortunate migrators with good deed, developed the doctrine at the feet of the glorious Guru. Chokyop Sangpo, I make request. Request to the Kadam Menga, the instruction lineage. Sultimbar, great, powerful, accomplished one. Shunu, who correctly relied on spiritual friends. Gergomba, who trained his mind stream in the supreme vehicle's path. To you three son of the victorious ones, I make request. Sangye Gwen, holder of a treasure of marvelous qualities. Namka Gelpo, blessed by the holy ones. Sengye Zangbo, who abandoned the 8 worldly dharmas. To Gyaltse Zangbo, I make a request. With Bodhicitta seeing all beings as his child, blessed and cared for by the exalted God, supreme spiritual friend guiding migratory beings in degenerate times that Namga Gyaltsen to Namga Gyaltsen, I make a request. Next is the lineage of the Guru. Gyaluk Avalokiteshvara, a great treasury of non-objectifying compassion, Manjushri, powerful and stainless wisdom, Tsongkhapa, crowning ornament of the learned ones of the snowlands, to the feet of Lobsang Thakpa, I make request. Guru Vajradhara, unity of the three refuges. For those who are to be subdued, he assumed the manner of a spiritual friend. To all the kind gurus who grant the supreme and common attainments, I make request. Eyes that view all the infinite holy scriptures. For that dimension, Mindu. So we are going to go through the lineage masters, naming the Dalai Lamas. So the fifth Dalai Lama, his master Kundin Benjol Hundrup, the fifth Dalai Lama, and the master Losang Chertok, the great abbot Losang Chertok, the great Jamyang Shebe Dorje, spiritual master Jamyang David Dorje, and teaching Ngawang Chokden, and then the seventh Dalai Lama, Longdun Ngawang Losang, and Ngawang Nyentok, and Panglong Turku, Ngawang Chunzin, the Ishi Gyatso, and Gyatso Dama Rinchen, and Master Shakya Yeltsin, Tenyo Kitrup, Master Chogi Gyaltsen, Namga Gyaltsen, Chitun Losang Chogi Gyaltsen, and then Tsundri Gyaltsen, Chogi Gyaltsen, Gyalek Gyatso, Ngawang Champa, Purpucho Ngawang Champa, and Pension Palden Yishi, Yongtsin Yishi Gyaltsen. Then next comes Losang Tembe. Ngawang Chenzin and Ketubi Yishi Gyatso. The Pupuchu Champa Gyatso, the 13th Dalai Lama, and then Master, the previous Ling Rinpoche, the 96th Golden Throne Holder, and then comes His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. Eyes that view all the infinite holy scriptures, for the fortunate one's supreme gateway to liberation, using skillful means which are moved by love. To the clarifying spiritual friends, I make request. In all my rebirths, may I never be separated from the perfectly pure lamas, enjoy the glory of Dharma and completing qualities of the levels and paths, grounds and paths. May I quickly achieve the state of Vajradhara. Next is the prayer, foundation of all good qualities. The kind and venerable spiritual masters are the foundation of all good qualities. Seeing that dependence on them is the root of all the paths, may I rely on them with great respect and continuous effort. Inspire me thus. A human life with leisure is obtained this once, understanding that it has great value and is hard to find. May I produce unceasingly the mind that takes hold of its essence day and night. Inspire me thus. The fluctuation of our body and life is like a bubble of water. Remember death, for we perish so quickly. After death, the effect of black and white karma pursue us as shadow follows our body. And finding a certainty in this, may I always be careful to abandon even the slightest negative action and to complete the accumulation of merit. Inspire me thus. There is no satisfaction in enjoying worldly pleasures. They are the door to all misery. Having realized that the fault of the samsaric perfections is that they cannot be trusted, may I be strongly intended on the bliss of liberation. Inspire me thus. That pure thought to attain liberation that produces great conscientiousness, mindfulness, and awareness. May I make the essential practice keeping the vows of individual liberation the root of the doctrine. Inspire me thus. Having seen that all beings, my kind mothers, have fallen like myself in the ocean of cyclic existence, may I train in the supreme heart dedicated to enlightenment, assuming the obligation to free all migrating beings. Inspire me thus, generating the dedicated heart alone without cultivation of the three moral practices does not lead to enlightenment. Having realized this, may I practice with intense effort the vows of the conquerors and their spiritual children. Inspire me thus. By quieting distraction to false objects and analyzing the meaning of reality, may I quickly generate within my mind stream the path in uniting calm, abiding, and insight, especially insight. Inspire me thus. May, when trained in the common path, I am a suitable vessel. Let me enter with ease the great gateway of the fortunate ones. The Vajrayana, the highest of all vehicles, inspire me. Thus, the basis of achieving the two powerful attainments is the pure vows and commitments that I have pledged. Having found true understanding of this, may I keep them even at the cost of my life. Inspire me thus. Having realized the significance of the two stages, which are the essence of the tantric path, may I steadfastly practice without laziness the 4 sessions of yoga and realize what the holy beings have taught. Inspire me thus. May the spiritual teachers who lead me on the sacred path and all spiritual friends who practice it have long life. May I quickly be and completely pacify all outer and inner hindrances. Grant such inspiration, I pray. In all my rebirths, may I never be separated from perfect spiritual masters and enjoy the magnificent Dharma, completing all qualities of the stages of the paths. And may I quickly achieve the stage of Vajradhara. So this is a mandala offering requesting the teaching on Lamrim. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, Mount Meru, 4 continents, sun and moon, I imagine as a Buddha land and offer to you. May all beings enjoy this pure land. His Eminence Gaden Rinpoche has offered the mandala to His Holiness. And Isure.
Şerzeki almış.
And the abbot of Shartse Monastery, Gaden Shartse Monastery, also offered mandala. Isure. Gaden Changze Isure. And next is requesting the teaching game of a mandala offering. As the clouds of your knowledge and love cover the sky of a Dharmakaya, Venerable Lamas, please bestow a rainfall of the profound and extensive Dharma suitable to those receptacles to be subdued. And Tham Guru Ratna Mandal Kamneya Taya Sangye Chuzomingada. Next. So next, now we'll say the verse of refuge and bodhicitta 3 times together. Everyone will say this. So while we say this verse, we have to correct our motivation and bear the right motivation so that the teaching, in order for the teaching to become Buddha Dharma, and engage in listening and teaching, the teaching will become the teaching of the Buddha by taking refuge. Now, in order for this teaching to become a cause for the sake of attaining complete enlightenment, the insurpassable enlightenment of Buddhahood, and make it a Mahayana teaching, this our engagement here, listening to the teaching and giving the teaching, has to be complemented with the altruistic intention of bodhicitta, thinking of becoming an enlightened Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. And so while during the discourse, the Lama has to have the right motivation to give the teaching, with this kind of motivation, and also the audience who have come to this teaching must bear the same altruistic motivation of bodhicitta. So the first 2 lines in this verse says, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. So with regard to Buddha Dharma, it's twofold. The scriptural teachings and the teachings of realization. And so we have to understand, it's very important to understand the true cessation in order to gain very perfect understanding of the Buddha Dharma. And so we have to mainly think about the Dharma jewel mainly. Now, if we are able to have a good understanding of the Dharma jewel, as Master Tsongkhapa says, those who follow you, who has given the teaching by seeing the truth as it is, they will be led to peace and liberation, whereas those who are outside of your teaching, they actually are like inviting more trouble. And therefore, Master Tsongkhapa says, from the depths of my heart, and from the depths of my bone marrows, I pay homage to you, the Buddha. So, of course, we have many different religious traditions, and when we talk about the uniqueness of the Buddha, it's not only, we should not focus only on the physical qualities of the Buddha, but as Master Tsongkhapa says, by understanding the Dharma, may I have a conviction of the Buddha, and may I be able to trust the Buddha for being the true teacher. And so Master Tsongkhapa says the Buddha gave teachings by seeing the truth as it is. And so from his own experience, he gave the teachings. So whether someone can be trusted or we can actually resort to as our refuge cannot be judged from his body, but we have to judge his conduct, the manner, or his behavior. So in order to do that, we cannot be just satisfied with by seeing the behavior of a person only one day, but we have to continuously check the person's behavior, and then we come to the conclusion: oh, this person is trustworthy. So in the monastic institutions, we also have to check the knowledge of somebody by actually examining their knowledge through test, and not by the size of the body or anything like that. So, of all the many different spiritual teachers who have come in this world, we have to see the uniqueness of the Buddha through his teaching, by judging his teaching. Although there are other qualities like showing miracles and so forth, but then the main thing is by understanding, by checking the teaching of the Buddha. And so, for that, we have to understand the true Dharma jewel comprising the cessation, true cessation, and the true path. So those who are engaging in study of philosophy in our monastic institutions, of course, they really do very extensive, in-depth study and going through the classical texts written by great masters, through logic and reasoning, which were used by masters Dignaka and Dharmakirti and so forth. So we have to study, and so those who have good understanding of the Dharma, they should use their understanding to invoke the sense of taking refuge and bodhicitta. So when you see the possibility of true cessation, then you can see that there is a possibility to put an end to our negative emotions, and also that the possibility of attaining Buddhahood. And then you will be able to really see the meaning of taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and also the meaning of dedicating oneself the Buddhahood, for Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings. And so let's say this prayer together. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the virtuous merit created by listening to the Dharma, may I attain the state of Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the virtuous merit created by listening to the Dharma, may I attain the state of a Buddha in order to benefit all migrators. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Supreme Assembly. By the virtuous merit created by listening to the Dharma, may I attain the state of Buddhahood in order to benefit all migrators or sentient beings. So this is urging all the gods, asuras, and humans to listen to the Dharma, the holy Dharma, because it is the means by which we put an end to the negative emotions and attain our goal of enlightenment. And so this teaching is being given to the gods, humans, non-humans, and all beings. And this is a homage to Guru Shakyamuni, made by Master Nagarjuna, saying, I pay homage to the Gautama who taught out of his compassion to rid us of all wrong views. And so Kono Lama Tenzin Gyaltsen Rinpoche has this tradition of saying a verse at the beginning of teaching each day, whenever he gives teachings. And so he had this tradition of saying a praise or homage, a verse of homage to the Buddha each day. So 1 hour has gone by now. So what should I say? So usually I say, it's important for us to understand what the Buddha Dharma is about, isn't it? So Je Rinpoche, Master Tsongkhapa says, all your teachings are based on the teaching of dependent origination, and that in turn is meant for peace. And there's no teaching of you which is not based, not for attaining peace. So all the 84,000 teachings of the Buddha, as Dharmakirti says, the Buddha has become an authoritative teacher, a master, because of his cultivation of great compassion. So even after becoming enlightened, the purpose of a Buddha is to help and serve the sentient beings. So we are not, we don't accept Creator God, and we don't think that everything is in the hands of the Buddha. But all that happens to us, our experiences come from our own actions, whether they are bad or good. The bad or good consequences of our actions bring about their respective results. So within the non-Buddhist traditions, the Jainis, the Jains don't also accept Creator God. And then there is the non-theistic Sankhya school. Of course, I have not personally met anyone from this tradition and have discussions, but they don't accept Creator God. But like Buddhism and Jainism, they accept law of causality. But the difference between Buddhism and the two other non-theistic traditions is, although all three accept causality, but by that, can we say that all three accept the dependent origination, the dependence of things? No, because the two other traditions, non-theistic traditions, actually believe in a permanent soul which enjoys the fruits of the karma. Although the karma and its results are accepted as coming from their causes and conditions, but the enjoyer of, or the experiencer of that karma, the result of the karma, is the soul. So that is the difference between Buddhism and these two other non-theistic traditions. So according to Buddhism, things do not come without causes, nor do they come from incompatible causes, nor do they come from permanent causes. And so things come from their own causes and conditions, respective compatible causes and conditions, and not impermanent causes. As Asanga says, gives these 3 points. So just as a person is, just as a chariot is designated on the basis of its parts put together, and likewise a human, a sentient being is designated on the basis of its psychophysical aggregates. So the Prasangika Madhyamika has the most profound theory of positing dependent origination, saying that nothing can be found within a person if we seek if the person within the psychophysical aggregates. And so the law of causality, that things are dependently arising, and also that things dependent on other factors is very great. And so Aryadeva says someone who doubts about the teaching of the Buddha should be clarified of that doubt by giving teaching on emptiness and dependent origination. And so if there are people who are new to my teachings, and so the teaching of the Buddha is about dependent origination. Within this, there are two levels of dependence. One is the causality, dependent in terms of causality, cause and effect. And if you think about the law of causality itself deeper and deeper, then what you will find is that not only do the effects arise in dependence of their causes, but the causes which give rise to their effects are in fact dependent on their effects, although they are not brought about by their effects as such, but they are posited in relation to their effects. And so in this way, they are dependent on their effects. So to be called, something to be called a cause, to have this identity as a cause, is because of its relation to its effect that it brings about. And so the effect comes later, but then in dependence on that cause, in relation to the effect, which the cause brings about, the cause gains its identity. And so the effect arises from its cause, but then the cause also is asserted in relation to its effect. And so this serves two purposes. As said in Ratnavali of Nagarjuna, the purpose is to attain a higher rebirth by harming others, by creating negative actions that harm others. You create causes that lead you to lower rebirths, unfortunate rebirths. And so, in order to gain higher rebirth, the temporary goal of abstaining from the virtue of morality, abstaining from the 10 non-virtuous actions, which should not be something which is forced onto you, but should be actually done voluntarily, understanding that by helping others, it will help me, it will be good to me, and by harming others, it will be bad for me. And so, thinking along this line, ideally, don't harm others. Even if you can't help others, at least don't harm them. And so, by understanding the law of causality, you'll understand that positive causes and conditions bring about positive results, and negative ones bring about negative results. And then you will actually adopt the practice of virtuous practices and avoid the non-virtuous actions. And so through this, you will create causes for higher rebirth. And then the second the purpose of the teaching of the Buddha is to attain liberation. And so the Buddha, in the 12 links of dependent origination, says that our suffering, which is unwanted, which we don't desire to have, is because of our ignorance. And so in the Four Noble Truths, Buddha gave teachings on the suffering, truth of suffering, and the origin of suffering. And then he expanded the working of the causality between the suffering and its origin, and expanded it in the 12 links of dependent origination. So ignorance is a distorted conception, and so we have to think about it, why it's distorted. whether it's our inner experiences or the things outside, all of them, how they appear to us is as if they have some kind of objectivity in them. And just as they appear to have some objective existence, and if they actually were to have that way of existence, it should become clearer and clearer to us as we do scrutinize them. But that's not the case. Even in quantum physics these days, they say that experiences are dependent on our own subjective experience. The things do not have any objective existence. And so this is similar to what the science is saying, is very similar to the Chittamatra way of saying that everything is the mind. So they are not scientists are not talking about liberation and all these things. They are not actually seeking. But then when they check things down to the smallest particles, subparticles, subatomic particles and so forth, they don't find anything objectively existing. And so, as it's said in a sutra, what arises through cause conditions does not have any nature of arising. So, since things do not have any objective existence, independent objective existence, now what we can conclude is that by default, things are merely designated by our conceptions. And so, if you really think about emptiness, of course I'm not saying I have realized emptiness, but I do put effort in understanding, in gaining insight into emptiness by reciting the the two verses of homage from the Madhyamaka Karika of Nagarjuna, and also by reciting the verse of homage in gratitude of the Buddha written by Nagarjuna. And so thinking along these lines, when I think about emptiness, I actually focus my mind on how things do not have intrinsic or objective existence. And so if you really give thought to this, how things are dependently arising, you can actually understand. When you think about yourself, this self appears as if it's some kind of a solid objective existence there. And also things outside of you, when you look at them, they also appear to have the same kind of objective existence. And so you don't get the notion that they are our own mental projections. And so ignorance permeates all the different negative emotions, just as the physical faculty, sense faculty, permeates all the sense faculties. As Aryadeva says in the 400 verses. So those, even the non-Buddhist traditions, which the practitioners, whose practitioners seek higher rebirth, also talk about the negative emotions. But they still assert that things have some objective existence. Even the Madhyamaka philosophers who follow the Savatantrika Madhyamaka philosophy say that things have objective existence. So the reason that you would give to say that things have objective existence finally may boil down to say that, oh, of course the things have objective existence because that's how they appear to me. So in relation to your own experience, you would say that such things do have objective existence, and you would just insist that this is the way things are, and there's no other real reason. But if you think closely what you will find is that things do not have any objective existence, and when you give more and more thought to this, of course, this will reduce. The more you find that things have no independent or objective existence, the more it will help to reduce our clinging on to that kind of existence of things. And then on the basis of that, you can cultivate bodhicitta, this altruistic intention to become a Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. This is how it's the sequence of understanding emptiness first, leading to generation of or cultivation of bodhicitta is given in Bodhicitta Vivarana of Master Nagarjuna, and also the Shantideva's Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life, where they teach about the exchange, equalizing and exchanging self with others. And so, understanding, by understanding the law of dependent or in terms of causality, you will create a cause for higher rebirth. And by understanding dependent origination in terms of how things are merely designated, you will create a causes for liberation and omniscient state. And so this is a unique teaching of the Buddha. Dependent origination is a unique teaching of the Buddha. And of course, in terms of love and compassion and kind heart, practice of cultivation of kind heart, this is something these are very common to other religious traditions as well. And so serving others, practically serving others in communities, the Christians are much better than us Buddhist monks and nuns. We do prayers, but in practical terms, when it comes to actually acting, we have very few. Of course, Dromtempa was said to have served people who were suffering leprosy, and then finally suffered leprosy himself. So there are such cases, and so the unique teaching of the Buddha is the dependent origination, and particularly the dependent origination in terms of how things are designated. And so with the practice of the Buddha, Dharma, the Aryadeva says, first avoid non-virtuous actions, and then get rid of the self-grasping, and then get rid of all views. And so, in order to gain a human life in the next rebirth and continuously, what we should do is here, while having obtained this human rebirth, we have to avoid non-meritorious actions. So there are different interpretations of the second line of this verse from the 400 verses, which says, in the middle, get rid of the self. So in the Prasangika Madhyamika, there is no difference in subtlety between the selflessness of persons and phenomena. But in one interpretation, this second line may refer to the selflessness of persons, which is the more grosser form or of selflessness. And then, in the end, to destroy all views means to meditate or to cultivate the wisdom realizing emptiness for the complete or for the consummate purpose, which is attainment of Buddhahood. And so this relates to the beings of the higher beings' highest capacity. And so in this way, if we could relate these three lines to the path of shared with the beings of small, middle, and great capacity, it would be fitting. And so in this way, someone who understands this is a wise person, as Aryadeva says. And so the Lamrim tradition, regarding the Lamrim tradition, Master Atisha came to Tibet, and he was requested by the regarding the term the Lamrim, it started with Master Adisha, and he was invited to Tibet by the Tibetan local lord, Changzhubu. Of course, the local lord, Yeshu, could not survive by the time Master Adisha came to Tibet. And then Changzhubu requested this teaching to Master Adisha to give a teaching which is beneficial to the Tibetans. So in the book, it's on English, is on page 13. So if you think about this text, there's something to ponder. So even though a master may be very well qualified, having studied all the different traditions, when they write text, it depends also on they write with the audience in mind. For example, Kamalashila wrote the stages of meditation in Tibet at the request of the Tibetan Emperor Trisong Detsen. So at the request of the Tibetan Dharma Emperor, the stages of meditation was written by Master Kamalashila. It was written in the colophon. So in the Kamalashila's stages of meditation, he actually emphasizes on using our wisdom and intelligence to make the thorough judgment, right kind of judgment. And at that time, of course, there were people, antagonists, who were against the using wisdom and doing analytical meditation. Whereas the lamp for the path was requested by by the Tibetan Lord ruler at that time to Master Adisha, and accordingly it was written for Tibetans. And then, with regard to Master Tsongkhapa's great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment, it was actually ideally meant for an audience who has studied the Prajaparamita, done a study of Prajaparamita based on Abhisamaya Alamkara in its commentaries, and also studied Madhyamaka based on the texts, classic texts like Madhyamaka Avatara and the Madhyamaka Karika and so forth. And so with regard to the teaching, the lamp for the path to enlightenment, so this, what I have been saying so far is how we should present the Buddha Dharma, called the overall presentation of Buddha Dharma. So we have the 17 Nalanda masters. Actually, traditionally there used to be 8 masters, and then I added the 9 others and made 17. So we study the texts of these great Indian masters, like Master Nagarjuna's fundamental treatise of the wisdom of the middle way. And I usually say that the Kanjur and Tenjur, the translations of the words of the Buddha and the exegetical treatises written by Indian masters, are not meant only for to be kept in altar and for our worshipping, but it must be used for our study. So Master Tsongkhapa himself read all the different, all the translations of the words of the Buddha in Tibetan, as well as the exegetical treatises that are in Tibetan, and then he summarized the meaning of all these texts in the Lamrim Chemo. So this was written in an environment where there were no real challenges from non-Buddhist traditions, but today we are in an environment where there are challenges from non-Buddhist traditions and many other traditions. And so the way the Tibetans, the Indians masters wrote their text, and way the Tibetans wrote their text, and within the Indian masters, there are difference. And within the Indian masters themselves, of course, for example, Master Atisha wrote this Lamp for the Path of Enlightenment at the request of the Tibetan ruler at that time inside Tibet, and therefore it's different also from other Indian masters. And Master Atisha was said to have actually gave teachings on Madhyamaka Aloka, Madhyamaka Hridaya, or the heart or essence of Madhyamaka, middle way, written by Bhavaviveka. So Atisha was said to have given teachings on that text, although he himself didn't follow the same Madhyamaka tradition as the author. So the teaching tradition of the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment had become very rare. I received this teaching on this from Kunu Lama Ringzin Temba, and also I received teaching on this Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment from Sergong Tsenshab Rinpoche, who actually gave the teaching based on Benjen Lobsang Chogyin's commentary. So I'll go through the text. In Sanskrit, it's the title is Bodhipattha Paradepa. In Tibetan, Changchum Lamki Dönma, which translates as the Lamp for the Path to Enlightenment. Now, with regard to the title itself, which mentions the path to enlightenment. Now, here the word enlightenment, for the word enlightenment in Tibetan, we have two words, Chang and Chup. So Chang has the meaning of purifying or dispelling the defilements. So where do these defilements abide, or where are they? It's in the mind. And so all these defilements that are on our mind, in our minds, are distorted conceptions, distorted cognitions. So they cannot be overcome merely through prayers. So if a thought or a state of mind is distorted, then how we have to overcome it and dispel it is by increasing the right understanding, the right view, and so that the negative ones decrease. Otherwise, just as it is said, that compassion and love cannot overcome the distorted view of self, grasping at self of a person and phenomena. And so the defilements are overcome through the understanding of emptiness. As Master Nagarjuna says in praise of Dharmadhatu, teaching of impermanence and suffering are meant for maturing or training our mind, and then also the emptiness of the clean self are meant for that. But then for actual transformation of the mind or overcoming of the defilements, the Buddha taught of emptiness. So emptiness, understanding of emptiness is the supreme means of overcoming all defilements. So these misconceptions that are in us, of course, if they were in the intrinsic nature of the mind, then there's no way we can overcome them. But if we check whether they are in the intrinsic nature of the mind or not, we should think about what's taught in the highest yoga tantras, which talk about the luminous nature of the mind. And so defilements are, on the one hand, not in the intrinsic nature of the mind, but the nature of these defilements is such that there are distorted views, distorted conceptions. As I quoted earlier from the 400 verses, just as the physical faculty, sense faculty, permeates all the other sense faculties, likewise ignorance, the fundamental ignorance, permeates all other negative emotions. And by understanding the dependent origination, the subtle dependent origination, you will overcome this ignorance, Ayateva says. So this has to be, the understanding has to be gained through by reflecting on these. And so if you see the possibility of attaining the total elimination of these defilements, so meaning attaining Changchup, which means understanding everything as they are, then we should understand the nature of the mind. And then you will have the enthusiasm to actually pursue the goal of enlightenment. In the Sakya tradition, they talk about the Kunshi Gyugyu, when they talk about the Tantra. So whether the defilements are merely temporarily in our mind or not, we should think about the natural and nirvana, which is the emptiness of the mind. So if you understand that emptiness of the mind, which is also called natural nirvana, then you will see that the defilements are something which can be uprooted. And the mind has this very nature of being able to cognize and being aware of everything as they are. There is this potential. And so we have all these. So once these defilements which impede us to see everything as they are, then we can actually see things as they are. So here the Changchup enlightenment here refers to the enlightenment of the Mahayana in the Mahayana context, which is to say Buddhahood. So what this text actually shows is the path to overcome the defilements that are within our mind stream by using the mind and developing the path and overcoming the defilements which are on our mind. Homage to the youthful Manjushri, Bodhisattva Manjushri, to verse number 1, verse number 2, verse number 3, 4, verse number 5. So we'll stop here for the time being. I'm not saying I'm stopping the teaching here, concluding for the morning session. So somebody was about to get up from their seat. So regarding the lamp for the path of enlightenment, there are many commentaries to this text by the great past old Kadamba tradition masters, and also in the three visions of the Sakya teachings, they also lead the disciples in a similar way as it is taught in the lamp for the path of enlightenment. Ale. Ale simpati. And then, of course, there is another way of leading disciples through the turning the mind away from samsara, pleasure of samsara and pleasure of the higher rebirth, and this life, attachment to this life and attachment to samsara. Master Tsongkhapa gives this outline in the Lamrim Chemo. He gives the teaching on the higher rebirths and how the means to lead to means leading to the higher rebirth, and how to aspire to reach attain higher rebirth, and the means to leading to that goal. So for those beings of small scope, the teaching actually puts them in perspective to attain higher rebirth, and not only making them to aspire to higher rebirth, but actually showing the different methods to lead them to that goal. And then in the four ways of turning the mind away, Master Tsongkhapa actually says, by thinking about the preciousness of the rarity of finding human life, and also the fact that life has no duration, or there's no time to lose, one actually overcomes the attachment to this life, and then by thinking about this suffering of samsara, and the law of causality, the infallibility of law of causality, one actually turns one's mind away from samsara. And so in Master Tsongkhapa's Lamrim, the disciples actually led through the teaching on, beginning with the teaching on reliance on a guru, and then in Master Sharawa's Lamrim teaching, it is said that the teachings are, the disciples are led through the teaching, beginning with the Buddha nature. So this is something significant, because when we think about the possibility whether the defilements can be overcome or not, we should think about the emptiness of the mind. And then in the Mahayana Uttara Tantra of Maitreya, it goes through the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, and then Buddha nature, enlightenment, and then the enlightened qualities of the Buddha. And so we actually receive the inspiration or the blessings of the Buddha because on the basis of the Buddha nature that is within ourselves, and by we go through the transformation of our mind and lead ourselves to Buddhahood, and then we serve other sentient beings through the enlightened activities. And so the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha in the Mahayana Uttara Tantra refers to the causal Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, the Buddha who is the teacher, the Dharma who the actual refuge, and then this, the teachings, and then the Sangha whom we depend on as the assistants on our path. So let us go through the Lamrim Chemo, the great treatise on the treatise of the path to enlightenment. This text that I have of Lamrim Chemo, I was given this by one monk from Tsang region of Tibet. I can still remember his face And when he gave me, it was bound with two wooden covers on the two sides, on top and at the bottom. And he had actually wrapped it in cloth and then tied it. So when I escaped Tibet, I was actually bring this one with me, nothing else but this one. And so I wanted to just say this. So maybe I received the teaching, the text when I was about 12 years old or something. So to go through the text, homage to the Guru Manju Ghosha, I bow down my hat to the chief of the Shakyas, whose body was formed by 10 million perfect virtues, whose speech fulfills the hopes and limitless beings, whose mind sees precisely all objects of knowledge. And so this praises the Buddha's body, the speech, the perfect body, speech, and perfect and mind. So Buddhahood doesn't come from without causes, nor incompatible causes. And so the Buddhahood comes through causes which are created over countless eons. As Master Nagarjuna says, may I complete the accumulation of merit and virtue through this meritorious action, and may I attain the form, body, and dharmakaya of a Buddhahood through the accumulation of merit and wisdom. And so, for us, our main aim to serve, in order to serve other sentient beings, is to achieve the form, body of a Buddha, as it is said in Master Tsongkhapa's commentary on Maitreya's Abhisamaya Alamkara. So in order to gain such a perfect body of a Buddha, it cannot be attained without overcoming all the defilements that are in our mind. Because unless we are able to attain the three secrets of body, speech, and mind of a Buddha, which are also called the wheel of the inexhaustible wheel of and so the enlightened activity of the Buddha, primarily the main activity is his teachings, which has to come through speech, and therefore the Buddha needs a body. So on the basis of the luminous mind, which turns into the omniscient mind of a Buddha, and then the subtle wind energy which accompanies it forms into the form body of a Buddha. And so we have one single entity. Within the single entity we have both the causes for both Buddha's body, speech, and mind. And these three, body, speech, and mind in a Buddha, are of one taste. And therefore, wherever the mind of the Buddha is, his body is there, his speech is there. For us, where our mind goes, our body will not reach. Perhaps in a Bardo state, when a Bardo being thinks about something, the body reaches also there. But it doesn't actually know everything as they are. It doesn't have that omniscience. Now, in order for this omniscience, we need to overcome all the cognitive obscurations, obscuration to knowledge completely. Now, in order for the form body, in order to attain the form body of a Buddha, it cannot come about without attaining the Dhammakaya. And so the first line, where it says whose body was formed of 10 million perfect virtues, shows is a praise to the Buddha's body. And then, in order to satisfy the needs of all sentient beings, And the Buddha has this perfect speech which fulfills all the hopes of limitless beings. Now, in order to give teachings in accordance with the mental predispositions of the different sentient beings, one should know them precisely. Even though you may be very sincere in giving some teaching, it depends on the sentient beings themselves, whether it helps or not. For example, if you give teaching on emptiness to someone who is not receptive to it, then it can, rather than helping, it can cause them to have wrong views or misconceptions, distorted thoughts and conceptions. And therefore, it's important to know what is needed for the different types of sentient beings. And so the teachings should be given according to the capacity of the different disciples. Disciples with small capacity, medium capacity, and the vast or great capacity. And therefore, the fourth line says, whose mind sees precisely all objects of knowledge, refers to when the Buddha has to perform the enlightened activities of sentient beings, to help sentient beings. The Buddhas have to know the needs, the predispositions or mental predispositions of the sentient beings, beginning with the teaching that leads them to avoid the non-virtuous actions up to the ultimate goal of omniscient state, which is brought about by the ultimate realization within the trainee level, the actual clear light, attaining the actual clear light. Next verse, homage to Manjushri, Manjukosha. I bow down to Ajita Maitreya and to Manjukosha, who are the who passed down the extensive and profound lineages. Next verse, homage to Nagarjuna and Asanga, who now the Buddha gave the first sermon on the four truths of the noble beings, and that gives the structure of the teaching of the Buddha. And then he also gave teachings on the perfection of wisdom, the second turning of the wheel Dharma, and also so in this perfection of wisdom teachings, it actually explicates, emphasizing on the teaching of the truth of the cessation. As I said earlier, referring to the Heart Sutra, what is not clearly presented or taught in the first sermon, the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, the perfect wisdom, makes it very clear. And also the path leading to the purification of negativities are laid down very clearly. And then the third turning of the wheel of the Dharma, which forms the basis for Maitreya's Mahayana Uttara Tantra, the teaching on Buddha nature, show the luminous nature of the mind. And of course, there is another form of the teaching of the Four Noble, the third turning of the wheel of Dharma, which is the sutra unraveling the thought of the Buddha, which gives the teaching pertaining to Chittamatra philosophy. And so, within the teaching of the Buddha, regarding the Buddha nature, there is the teaching of the perfection of wisdoms, which emphasizes on the empty nature of the mind, and then the third turning of the wheel, the essence of Tathagata Garbha, the sutra, which emphasizes on the luminous nature or the clear light nature of the mind. And then, based on the teachings of the perfection of wisdom and the third turning of the wheel, Master Asanga and Nagarjuna actually explicated the teachings of the Buddha and started the Madhyamaka and Chittamatra traditions, the extensive path and the profound path. And then next is the homage to Master Atisha Dipankara, who actually holds the stream, the combined stream of both the teachings of the vast and the profound lineages. And next, I bow with respect to the teachers who, with deeds of skill and means, moved by loving concern, illuminate for the fortunate the gateway leading to liberation, the eye for viewing all the limitless scriptures. So within the Kadam tradition, there are the three lineages who all follow the same teacher, Master Atisha. So in terms of their way of leading the disciples, there are the Kadam lineage of the scriptures, based on the teaching of Jatakamala and the Udana Varga, as well as Sutra Alamkara and Bodhisattva Charya Avatara and the compendium of the practices by Shantideva. So if we could actually use these two texts by Shantideva and teach them in combination, they could complement each other. Where certain points are not very clear in the compendium, they are clearly presented and explained in Bodhisattva Charya Avatara. So the teachings of these 6 texts of the Kadampa, of the lineage of the scriptural lineage of the Kadam tradition, later it became very rare to find this lineage in the eastern and Ulsang part of Tibet. In the central part of Tibet, but I received the teachings from Sakya Ken Rinpoche Kunga Wangchuk. Nowadays, those making effort at yoga have studied few of the classic texts, while those who have studied much are not skilled in the key points of practice. They tend to view the scriptures through the eyes of partisanship. So we have to think about this. Over 600 years ago, when Master Tsongkhapa wrote this Lamrim Chemo, the situation was like that, and even today we have the same kind of situation. Unable to use the reason to discriminate the meaning of the scriptures. So people think of doing practice of the Dharma, but have no understanding of the entire teaching, the holistic understanding of the teaching. But they focus on something called quintessential instruction. Of course, it is good to focus on this kind of instructions, but there is danger of actually not being able to practice sufficiently, falling into the wrong kind of paths. So when you do practice of the Dharma, it's not enough to only be able to put effort to work hard, but you have to understand the Dharma well. And then, with reference to the line, while those who have studied much are not skilled in the key points of practice, of course, we have these great monastic institutions where there's great deal of learning going on, but many times what happens is the studies that they do, the monks and nuns do, actually are used as a tool to turn one's mind externally. They become more extroverted, externally focused. and not to tame their mind, as the first Dalai Lama has said. The purpose of study is to actually discipline one's mind. One has to understand that. So from starting from our the study of collected topics and the formal primer of logic and so forth, they are meant for our taming our mind. So the teachers have to actually make this clear to the disciples. Of course, in terms of taming our mind, we can do it through skill in means or the method, part of the practice, but mainly we have to use our wisdom, intelligence. So opening our eyes of wisdom, we have to use our intelligence. The Buddha gave his teaching, and then the great masters of India actually explicated them in their treatises, and then our masters of Tibet have further made it clear, the points of practice, to bring it down to the for practice. And then it says they tend to view the scriptures through the eyes of partisanship. So having done one's studies, we tend to develop attachment to our traditions and then engage in partisanship. So I met one scientist, quantum physicist. When I met him, he gave his talk on quantum physics, and he told me he was a quantum physicist. That is his field of research. But he should not have attachment to this field of research, because he said it's not good. So this is true. So what he said was actually is true. So I usually tell people that I always tell them that as a Buddhist, if I am attached to my own tradition, as Aryadeva says, with a biased mind, you cannot attain peace. You cannot realize peace. Even if you can, with a biased attitude, you cannot see the good things in others. So it is important to be unbiased, as the 400 verses says. So tending to view the scriptures through the eyes of partisan makes us develop this attachment, and so this is not good. Developing attachment to our own tradition system alone. We have the Pali tradition upholders who are do not take much interest in the Sanskrit tradition of Buddhism. Of course, in Tibet, we have the study of Vinaya and Abhidharma. So we have the teachings which are in the Pali tradition. But on general level, we have, generally speaking, we have this divide between the Pali and the Sanskrit tradition followers. And even amongst Tibetans, I have seen one text, one book written, a dictionary written by an English. He has said in that dictionary, Tibet, in each region there is a Lama, and each Lama has their own tradition. And so this is also something which seems to exist in Japan as well. And so when you focus on only your own tradition, you don't see others. And within this Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we have the Sakya, Kagyu, Nyingma, and Gelug. So if you only focus your own tradition, Sakya or Nyingma or Kagyu or Gelug, I mean, you will not see the tradition and the systems of other traditions. And then within the Gelug, we have the different monastic institutions who have their own textbooks that they focus on. And then they don't even see the text written by Master Tsongkhapa and his two chief disciples. So of course we have to be able to uphold our own tradition well, but together with it, if we could actually study the other traditions, we can gain much insight and wisdom. And especially in the Nyingma tradition, there is so much that we can gain from the Nyingma Dzogchen system, which talks about the Rigpa Sangtel, the breakthrough of Rigpa. We can gain insight into, and then from this Goya Samaja tradition, we can also contribute towards understanding of the Nyingma, the Dzogchen tradition, Tögyel, and so forth. And so, in this way, we can actually complement each one another if we could study all these traditions, Nyingma, Sakya, Kagyu, Gelug. So we can also find different ways of doing analysis and opening the door to insight. So as Gyunkhen Jingme Wangpo says in his book on the tenets of Buddhist and non-Buddhist traditions, within the Buddhist tradition, the lower philosophical traditions serve as the lower rung of the ladder leading to the next level. And so we should not neglect the traditions, the other traditions, thinking that, oh, this scripture belongs to this other tradition, but in fact study them. And then in the next line, Master Tsongkhapa says, unable to use reason to discriminate the meaning of the scriptures. So he uses the term reason here. So we should not, what it shows is that we should not base on just scriptural authority, because if we do so, then within the scriptures of the scripture of the Buddha, there are various ways of various teachings, differing teachings, and therefore we have to use reason, as Master Tsongkhapa says in his treatise on the definitive and the interpretive meaning of the scriptures. We have to ultimately use reason, because someone who goes against reason cannot be accepted as authoritative scholar. And so Buddha himself has said, monks and scholars, examine my teaching just as a goldsmith tests a gold for its purity, and then accept, and not to accept out of a devotion. And so this is something which has come from the Buddha himself, who was confident to say such things, that we should actually examine his own teaching. So I'm not being disrespectful to other religious traditions. I respect all the different religious traditions. It's a reality, it's a fact that we cannot turn everyone on this earth to Buddhism. And it was a reality even at the time of the Buddha that he actually could not convert everyone to Buddhism. So there's no point in causing divide because of different religious traditions. Of course, we have lots of problems between nations and between peoples and so forth. And on top of that, on top of all these problems that we have already, and if we add more problem, more difficulty to others in the name of religion, it's no use. It's no good. So I sincerely respect all the religious traditions. When I go to church, Christian churches, and see Jesus Christ's images, I reflect on his great deeds to help humanity, and I appreciate and admire him. And within the Buddhist tradition itself, between disciple and teacher, so Haribhadra, in his commentary to Abhisamaya Alamkara, says that Vimuktisena actually interpreted Abhisamaya Alamkara differently from his own teacher, who was Vasubandhu. And so Vimuktisena actually used reason to go against his own teacher's interpretation of Abhisamaya Alamkara into the Chittamatra philosophical view. And so Master Tsongkhapa says, those who are intelligent and aspire, who have enthusiasm, in order not to be led astray by those antagonists who try to lead you astray from the teaching of the Buddha, you should actually use reason to support yourself, to make judgment whether certain teachings can be taken literally or not, or whether they should be interpreted otherwise, so that you kind of don't find any logical contradiction within the teaching of the Buddha, contradiction within the Buddha himself. And so, since we cannot go against reason, Master Tsongkhapa says in Ngogrim Chemo, the stages of the path, mantra path, cultivate this eye of wisdom through reason and not through scriptural quotations. And so, the Buddha himself has said that we have to use reason and not follow me out of blind faith. So other traditions, of course, differ from the Buddhist tradition, because other religious traditions, actually the founders of these religious traditions teach in their respective books that the followers must actually obey or follow whatever is teaching in their teachings. The next verse says, therefore, having seen that they lack the path of pleasing the wise, the supreme complete instructions, the key points of the teaching, I was inspired to explain this path of great trailblazers. So this text, Lamrim Chemo, is of course a classic text. It is a great text, treatise. And especially when in the Lakdong Chemo, the section on special insight, Master Tsongkhapa actually picks up the very difficult passages from Prasanapada of Chandrakirti and comments on them by using reason and logic. So this shows his joy in writing this text. And next it says, which is to urge the fortunate beings, the receptive disciples, all those fortunate ones who are obscured by the darkness of partisanship, who have the mental capacity of to differentiate good and bad, and who wish to make meaningful this good life of leisure, should listen with one-pointed attention So as said in 400 verses, one should be unbiased. So Tsongkhapa says, all those fortunate ones who are unobscured by the darkness of partisanship. So having no attachment to one's own tradition and systems. And of course, you should not accept everything that all the different traditions says out of faith, out of sincerity, but then you have to use logic and reasoning. And the first Dalai Lama says we have to feel the gratitude of all the sentient beings and have this pure vision of all the followers of different traditions of Buddhism. So we have to be clear of the darkness of partisanship and have the mental capacity to differentiate good and bad. We have to be enthusiastic in analyzing and examining things through reason. And the purpose of that it has to be to discipline and tame our mind. And who wish to make meaningful this life, this good life of leisure, should listen with one-pointed attention. So those who have the text, please, I'm not going to read each and every one. I'll just refer to the paragraphs and page numbers. And then the outlines, the structural or topical outlines. First verse, after all this line here, the teaching that I will explain is how the fortunate beings are led to Buddhahood by way of the stage of the path of enlightenment. That's number one, contain the key points of all the concrete scriptures. Number two, are the pathways forged by two great trailblazers, Nagarjuna and Sangha. And so, although this text shows the path pertaining to the great beings mainly, and it also gives teaching pertaining to the beings of the teachings pertaining to the beings of small and medium capacity as preliminary to the teachings pertaining to the beings of great capacity, which is to say the beings who are receptacle to the Mahayana teaching. The scholars of glorious Nalanda are said to have explained the teaching by way of three purities: the purity of teachers, speech of the teacher, the purity of the mind of the disciple, and the purity of teaching that will be explained. And so here the purity of speech of master has to be such that the master himself must do analysis. So when the Kadamba masters gave teachings, they gave very extensive teachings, but at the end of the teaching, what it serves is to tame or subdue the mind of the disciples. And so the master must have used logic to make his speech pure. And then the next point, the purity of the disciple's mind. So since the teachings are meant for taming our mind, the disciple has to have that intention when they listen to the teachings. And then with the third point, which says the purity of the teaching that will be explained. In all the classical Indian texts, there is always the mention of the 4 points, such as the subject matter of the text, the immediate purpose, the ultimate or the lasting purpose, and then the connection between these 3 points. So first of all, we have to check what subject matter that certain texts deal with, and what what purpose does it serve? The temporary purpose as well as the ultimate goal. Not only looking for the temporary purpose, but the ultimate purpose as well. So knowing the subject matter, and that in turn leading to a certain immediate goal, and then that in turn leading to the essential goal, and then thereby seeing that the third point relates to is connected to the second one, and that in turn is related to the first. Of course, this is how the beings with sharp faculty goes about when they deal with the practice of the Dharma. Of course, there are those who are of lesser faculty, or less who base mainly on faith. That's a different case. But the principal follower or the disciple of Buddha are those of sharp faculty. At a later time, the teaching spread to the Vikramalashila. It is said that it was important for its scholars to begin with three topics: the greatness of author of the teaching, the greatness of teaching, and how one should explain and listen to the teaching. Between these two renowned methods, here I will follow the latter in my explanation. So Master Atisha Divankara Shrijana also seems to have studied at Nalanda University. So even when he was living in studying at Vikramalashila, he was studying these great treatises written by the Nalanda masters. And so the Vikramalashila masters or the scholars also studied the Nalanda masters' teaching texts. Shantarakshita was invited to Tibet by the Tibetan emperor. So they were really great, have far-sighted vision, the Tibetan masters. Of course, Tibetan kings have established familial kind of a relation with China and Nepal by then, by taking the Chinese and Songtsen Gabo taking a Chinese and Nepalese princess as his wives. But the Tibetan emperors actually sought the Buddha Dharma, looked to seek the Buddha Dharma. They looked towards India itself. So they were very broad thinking. So how you can see this is there's indication of the Tibetan emperors being very broad-minded, because with regards to Buddhism, they took it directly from India, not from a third source, third country like China or Nepal. And also they used our own script or language, Tibetan, and not Chinese or other languages. And while translations of the Indian Buddhism were carried on in Tibetan language also was enriched in its vocabulary. And then there are other subjects like astrology or medicine. Maybe there are some things which are taken from China. We have medical terms in our medical books which are Chinese. And then with regard to food, Tibetans usually have their staple food as pak, which is the roasted barley dough, and then thukpa, the noodles. So when it comes to food, we took from Chinese. The very word that Tibetans use for vegetables, tel, is in fact Chinese. And then with regard to our costume, we actually copied the Mongolians, perhaps because of our climate. And on top of our monasteries, there is something called tuk. There's no meaning in Tibetan. Actually, when I talked with some Mongolian friends, I learned that it was actually this word tuk is Mongolian, because it makes no sense in Tibetan at all. And I met some Indian recently, and I'm in Ladakh and some regions. The Tibetan dress is called chuba. So in Afghanistan and some of these Arabic regions, the term for the same dress that we wear, Tibetan lay people wear, is chupa. So it seems this word has come from the Arabic language. So we took our clothes from the neighboring countries like Mongolia, and food from China, and then we took Buddha Dharma from India itself. So it shows how broad-minded the Tibetan emperors were. Before Buddhism came to Tibet, we already had our indigenous religion, Bön tradition. But through the skillful means, the Tibetan master emperors also took in other Buddhism and other subjects. And then later on, as Tuken Chugen Nyima says, that Bön tradition has actually mixed some Buddhist elements, and Buddhists have mixed some Bön traditions elements in our practices. So in Bön monastic institutions, the texts that we study, the classic texts written by Indian masters, are also studied by the Bön followers. So the Tibetan emperors were not narrow-minded at all, and were very intelligent and broad-minded. And therefore, through their examination and their analysis of their neighboring countries, they actually took on all these different imported all these different traditions. But later on, we rather became more confined to our own tradition and Tibet. And of course, I have now devolved or left the political responsibility, so I have no responsibility on political issues. The explanation of the stages of the path to enlightenment has 4 parts: showing the greatness of the teaching in order to establish that it is noble origin, showing the greatness of the teaching in order to engender respect for the instructions, how to listen to and explain the teachings, and how to lead students with the actual instruction. So within the teachings of Lamrim, there are the explanatory transmissions, and then within the explanations, there is, or the guided instructions, there is the guiding by laying bare the experiences and experiential ones, where the disciples are given certain instructions and then led to actually go over them for weeks or months or years, and then when they have gained some experience of those teachings, those instructions, then the teacher moves on to the next instruction. And I knew one Kagyu master, Sengda Rinpoche. He has a very good instruction lineage. So he gives us the teacher gives he gave one instruction, and then let the disciples go over it for weeks or months, and then when they have some experience, he moves on to the other. And also in the Lamde tradition, in Sakya Lamde system of Sakya tradition, also they seem to have this. The teacher doesn't use any text, but gives explanations and instructions from his own experience, and then lets the disciples also go over them. So there is this instruction which is called the Nyongti and Nyamti. And so the great treatise of Lamrim and the middle length are come under the explanatory called guided explanation. And so, having listened to the teaching each day, you have to go over the meaning of these teachings, these two texts, and not just leave it after listening to. So merely by listening to the teaching, you will not be able to come to conclusion of the points of practice. So when you go back to your rooms, go over in your minds and think through the different points. Of course, you have to do. You have to analyze and examine the teaching. So of course, I'm not forcing you to do this, but you come here so that you may be benefited from my teaching, and I also am giving the teaching with the same purpose. So, therefore, if you could actually go over the points and do the screening analysis, as meditation, it would be good. Of course, doing analysis thoroughly will take years and years. So these instructions in general are the showing the greatness of the teaching's author in order to establish that it is of noble origin. And so this is instruction that comes from the ornament of knowledge, clear knowledge, or clear realization. So the main point here that we could make is what is said in Abhisamaya Lankara itself, where it goes through the teaching on the instructions, the 10 instructions, beginning with the instruction on the Four Noble Truths, and then the two truths, and then Four Noble Truths, and then the 3 jewels. So first we have to understand the 2 truths. And on the basis of this understanding, we can go into the teaching of the Four Noble Truths. And so, when we gain insight first into the law of causality, the dependent origination in terms of law of causality, then you will be able to gain insight into the dependent origination in terms of how things are dependently designated. And then when you actually understand the designation, dependent in terms of designation, then you will also understand the law of causality better and more in depth. And that's how you can understand emptiness as giving rise to the different causality, and causality actually giving rise to emptiness. Insight into emptiness. So in the Lakdong Chemo, the insight section, Master Tsongkhapa goes through a certain passage on that is found in Prasanapada of and then 4 truths. He goes through the Prasanapada, which comments, which is commenting on the 26th. Chapter of Madhyamaka Karika of Nagarjuna. So, Tsongkhapa, based on that, understanding the 2 truths, you lead understanding into the understanding of the 4 truths. And then you see the possibility of the results, the ultimate goal of enlightenment. And then when you understand that, when you see that possibility, we will have the aspiration to reach that goal. And in order to reach that goal, you will actually engage in the practices leading to that. And with the practices pertaining to turning your mind away from the pleasures of this life and turning your mind away from the pleasures of the next life. In the section on the paths, shared path with the beings of intermediate scope, in the Lamrim Chemo, it says somewhere, so this is trying to find that. So although I'm not, I can't remember verbatim, but then what Master Tsongkhapa says is the Four Noble Truths are something which is taught in all the Hinayana and Mahayana teachings, scriptures, and which show, on the basis of which one should understand how we actually fall into samsara and how we are propelled into samsara and how actually we should go out of samsara. And having said that, so first Master Tsongkhapa goes through the touching on the practice side, so the Four Noble Truths are taught many times, frequently in the scriptures of the both Hinayana and Mahayana, and it is very crucial to attain liberation. And this must be how we should lead disciples to. So I actually introduced Buddhism according to this. So this is what is said in both the Great Treatise and the Middle and Strength Treatise of Lamrim by Master Tsongkhapa. So this was a reference to saying that this is so hence the very author of the Lamp for the Path is also the author. So the Lamp of the Path to Enlightenment, the author of the Lamp of the Path is the author of this work. The other name by which the great master Dipankara is widely renowned is the glorious Atisha. And then the verses under the title, the caption, how he took rebirth in an excellent lineage. And next, how upon page number 36 in the book, how upon that basis he gained the good qualities, and how, knowing the many texts, he gained the good qualities of scriptural knowledge. Nakso's 80 verses of praise says, at the age of 21 he had mastered the 64 arts, all forms of crafts, the Sanskrit language, and all philosophy. As it's stated here, by the time he was 21, he had become a full-fledged scholar, After training in the topics of knowledge common to Buddhist and non-Buddhist, the four knowledges of grammar, logic, craft, and medicine, more specifically, the great Dolungpa said that at age 15, after hearing Dharmakirti's drop of reasoning, Naya Bindu Prakarana, one time Adisha debated with a famous scholar, a non-Buddhist logician, and defeated him, whereby his fame spread everywhere. The next paragraph 3 on page number 37. Last paragraph on that page. Then, until he was 31, Adisha trained in the higher and lower scriptural collections of Buddhist knowledge within the tradition of philosophy. In particular, at Otantapuri, he heard teachings for 12 years from the Guru Dharmarakshita on the great detailed explanation Mahivibhasa. Through becoming very skilled in the text of the four basic schools, he came to know, according to different schools and without confusion, even the finest details. So let's stop here on page 38, the first paragraph, before how engaging in the proper practice he gained the good knowledge, good qualities of experiential knowledge. Dharanal.